Over the last 10 days, Kenosha City Church, we had a team in South Africa, and it took a lot to get ready for this trip. This trip was 2 years in the making. It was originally supposed to go to Russia, all right? Russia in November of 2020. You know what happened. The pandemic hit, it delayed the trip, and then war broke out. All right, so Russia, we have our partners on the ground in Russia. We can't get on the ground. We have visas that won't be issued. It's probably not advisable in the conditions what's going on over there. We will get back there soon enough. But we pivoted to South Africa, and we got to understand that God is sovereign, and he wanted us here in South Africa in this very moment. So we put on a youth conference for youth and pastors in Johannesburg. To be completely honest, it was one of the harder conferences to pull off. Of all the conferences I have been a part of, this was one of the harder ones. The area was very rough due to government corruption. The country had daily rolling blackouts. They called it load shedding. They were given a bunch of money to invest in their electrical grid, and instead they spent it on themselves, their family, and now they don't have power a good chunk of the day all across the country. And so you could imagine on the first night of our conference, what do you think was going to happen, right? We are in our first worship song. We're getting ready to get this conference off the ground. And during the first worship song, pew, the lights go out. And I'm thinking, oh, and it's dark, okay? I'm like, oh, it's wintertime down there. So it's like, okay, it's pitch black dark. And I'm like, this is how we're going to start our conference? But the cool thing is, the worship team kept going. Oh yeah, you couldn't hear the electric bass. There were some holes in the worship, but the voices just got louder. And what's cool about it, we had a lot of people from Zambia, and they just went into like traditional, just African worship. I was like, what is going on here in the pitch black, all right? This is absolutely amazing. And of course, they got a generator going, and for the first time ever, I'm preaching under a generator. They had to lock the doors of the building because they didn't want the neighborhood gangs coming in and ripping things off. There was a church down the road where they ripped out everything in the building. So okay, this is a wild way to start off night one. But guess what? Nobody gave up, and they pressed on. It's unlike anything I've ever experienced here in the United States. They pressed on. They realized the mission. They realized they needed to keep going. And this conference equipped young people to know their faith, how to share their faith, and giving each attendee the opportunity to share their faith in the streets, and they weren't going to be stopped. Now, on the second day of the trip, and by the way, we'll go more extensively, give you a trip update in the weeks to come. We're going to bring the team up here in the weeks to come. Can't wait to do that. But on the second day of the trip, we had a soccer tournament, all right? We put on a soccer tournament. We had 3 games going on in the neighborhood field. And at the end of the soccer tournament, we're going to share the gospel. So it was legit. We made a legit field. We brought all the gear out there. We left the gear behind. We had legit refs. And this tournament was built by just rapid word of mouth. We didn't advertise it. We just said, hey, go tell your buddies. And before you knew it, we had hundreds of people taking part in this tournament. Now, as the tournament began, the director of Go Live Dare, Don Olding, and we were a little bit behind, and we were walking up to the field as the games were ready to progress. And you gotta understand, this area we would consider a very rough area, high crime. So as we were walking to the fields, Don noticed this group of 7 boys, young men, that were sitting in the benches. In fact, there they are. These young men had scissors, and they were cutting up their weed in preparation of getting high. Also, unbeknownst to us, they were in a neighborhood gang and was seen as a violent threat to many in the neighborhood. We didn't know that. So instead of ignoring the young people, Don, as only Don can do. I mean, he's a big guy. Before Christ, he was a bouncer. Before Christ, he was a brawler, so nothing scares him. He began to engage with the group, asking them what they were doing. And they're talking about, we're rolling up our weed. You can see the guy right there, he's rolling it up. I'm like, and he's shaking their hands, and they have weed on their hands. I'm like, Don, you have weed on your hands. It was weird, okay? And so, but he began talking to them about Jesus. And as he was talking about Jesus, I looked at what seemed to be the leader of the group. You can see in the picture your far left with the scissors. He seemed to be kind of the voice of the group. And I asked him, like, what are you doing? He goes, like, we're about to get high. And immediately I thought of, you know what? I'm going to tell him a twist of the tale of the real story of the woman at the well. You know that? John chapter 4, Jesus goes to a woman, says, and he begins to ask for water, and then he begins to say, I can give you water that will never exhaust. And she's like, I want that water. I'm like, I think I'm going to go woman at the well here, except it's not going to be well, it's going to be weed, all right? So I said, hey, if I could tell you a high that would give you more than a high than anything else, the high of the most high, one that you'll never, not feel dissatisfied, would you be interested? And not only did he say yes, the whole group kind of leans in. They said, yes, show us where we can get this high. oh boy, here we go. I'm locked in. I realize, wow, this would be so cheesy in the United States, but they're locked in. All right, it's like, okay, here you go. His name is Jesus. And they're like, huh? Jesus. Like, if you receive Jesus in your life, you won't need that stuff. If you receive Jesus in your life, you're going to receive the satisfaction you're looking for. But most importantly, if you receive Jesus in your life, you're going to receive that forgiveness that you can't get anywhere else. You're going to receive that purpose that you're looking for everywhere else, but you're not finding it. Are you interested? You're interested in the high, the most high. And they're all like, yes, we are. So Dawn and I began to explain the gospel, and we were able to get through the entire thing. And they were understanding what we were saying. And so we got to the point of like, all right, would you guys like to receive Jesus into your life? They're understanding this. Like, would you receive Jesus in your life? And they're like, yes, three of them. Not everybody. Some are like, I don't know. Some are like, three of them. Like, yes, we want to receive Jesus now. This is what we need to do now. And I'm like, all right. I'm like, this is crazy. Like, people are going to receive Jesus right now. And it's like, all right, let's bow our heads. Let's pray. And as we bowed our heads to pray, all heck broke loose. When we bowed our heads, before I could even get one word out of my prayer, a rival gang came by and began to just taunt them. Now, when one rival gang begins to taunt another gang, guess what happens usually, right? Do you know? Oh yeah, we found ourselves in the middle of a brawl. It was like WrestleMania, all right? They were brawling each other. I'm like, oh my goodness, what's going on? This brawl, like, and you know, when you have this big brawl of people, usually it kind of moves like a dust devil, right? You know, it's like, it's kind of moving all this way. It began to move towards the bridge. And Don got in the thick of it, right? Again, he used to be a brawler. He's like, put everything away. They pulled their knives out. One guy was threatening him with a gun. I'm like, what is going on? And I'm like, okay, I need to go help Don. And as I'm beginning to walk towards the bridge, I froze. And I realized, no, hang with me here. I saw this 2 weeks before the trip. I saw this very area and this very fight, and I got in the thick of it. I was knifed. Let's just put it this way. In the end of the dream, Dawn was okay, I wasn't. And I'm like, I've seen this. And I realized the Lord had warned me 2 weeks prior. Don't go into a gang fight. So I'm like, okay, that's the only bridge to the game. So in order to get the bridge, like, I either have to join it, and there's a park behind there, and some of our girls from the trip, they were in that park. I'm like, okay, if they go in there and they get in trouble, I'm gonna have to join it. Or if I want to avoid this whole thing, because I know what happens 2 weeks prior, I kind of saw this. Beneath that is a sewage lagoon. So I'm like contemplating, I'm gonna wade through that thing, all right? I couldn't believe this. Don's in the thick of it. He's telling them to put their knives away. He's telling them to quit threatening each other with guns. And one of the guys that we shared the gospel with, he had had enough. He wound up, he took his fist and knocked the guy out that was threatening with the gun. And he went to the ground, blood spattering everywhere, blood spattering on Don. And he laid there for 5 minutes and kind of dispersed him there. And we looked at him like, is he dead? And after 5 minutes, he finally got up and began to stagger away, and we couldn't believe it. And the group of guys we just shared the gospel with, they were like, we win! Ha ha! We win! I'm like, no, this is not, I can't believe this, right? Like, what's going on? Like, and finally, Don, without nothing, he knew his purpose. He said, gentlemen, this is not how you act. How would you like to join this soccer game? I'm like, are you crazy? They just about killed this guy. They joined the soccer game, and they played the soccer tournament. And they heard the gospel. Now, I wish I could tell you that they received Jesus when they heard the gospel. They heard the gospel now twice. They're getting ready to receive it. Maybe they did. Maybe the seeds are there. But some of their buddies who weren't in the original fight, they joined the soccer game. They did drugs. They did all these different things, and they responded. They said yes to Jesus. And not only did they say yes to Jesus, they joined the conference. And on the last day, they're knocking on doors, sharing their faith. How does that happen? I'll tell you how that happens. It happens when you are ready and prepared to do the work of Jesus. And church, what I want to say to you this morning as we close off the Revelation series is that many of us in many churches are not ready to do any of that. We're there to talk about it. We're there to maybe know about it. But what has happened is we have devolved into personal comfort, or we've devolved into a club. I'm not saying us, but I'm saying in general. Do we want to be New Testament Christians, or do we want to play the game? I am sick and tired of playing the game. And I want you to know this right now. I did not intend to be in a gang warfare fight, right? But now that I have, I'm here to live to tell about it. And what I want to tell you this on the flip side of it, are we done with the game? Are we? Are you ready? Are you ready for the gospel? Are you ready to advance the gospel, or do you want to play games with comfort? That's the line in the sand I'm drawing. Did you get that? I'm asking myself this question too, church. Because